Hey y'all, it's Kira. So I just tried to go live on YouTube and talk about what I'm about to talk about, but apparently, since I've never streamed before, it's a new channel. It said that I requested streaming access today, and I will have access in 24 hours, it says. So I really don't want to run into the issue of this video going over an hour and um, me having to, it gets broken up and then I have to worry about merging it and all that. So I'm gonna try to keep track of the time, okay? But I wanted to go ahead and get this video out because I have several that I need to do. So without further ado, okay, she is here. She is here. Baby, get into this fro. Get. Oh, okay. I just wanted y'all to see. Anyway, so today I'm gonna be talking about my relationship with my parents and how that influences me as an adult. Being considerate of time, I'm gonna jump right in. So, piggybacking off of the last two videos that I've already recorded, I'm gonna start with. I'll start with like like the how I came to be. Let's start there. So, like I mentioned to y'all in my intro video, I am from a small agricultural town in South Florida called Belle Glade, Florida. And my parents are both from there. They dated in high school, and when they graduated, my dad went straight to the military, and they were still dating during that time. When my mom came up pregnant a couple of years into that, now I'm telling the story the way that it was told to me. Okay, I wasn't there, so I don't know. All right, but my dad propositioned my mom to come be with him so that they could start a family. My mom, for whatever reason, declined that offer because she didn't want to leave home. Maybe she was afraid. She didn't want to leave her parents. Whatever it was, she did not. And so that is what caused the split, as far as I know. And so, yeah, that's kind of the inception of my life. So I will start with, excuse me, my parents never married. I never lived in the same house with my parents. My dad married 4 years later, and I subsequently got a couple of siblings from his relationship with his wife. My mom, I have also a brother and sister from my mom, and we share different fathers. We have different fathers, and I lived with my mom for all of my life. So I'll start there. Starting with my mom. Me and my mom lived with my grandparents in Belle Glade until I was about 5, I believe. And when I think about my childhood, stop saying Kira. When I think about my childhood, that is the part of my life that I remember the most, being brought up with my grandparents. The more I make videos, you will likely hear me talking about my grandparents, in particular my grandfather, a lot because they raised me as an educator and someone who has been in the field of child care education and youth development for the last decade. When you're thinking about human growth and development, in particular child development, from birth to 7 are like those foundational years. And so if I lived in a home with my grandparents until I was about 5, then that it makes sense why I kind of go back. And even when we did move out into our own places, I was going back home to Belle Glade like every weekend until I was in like middle school. So we lived with my grandparents until I was 5. We moved out, my mother and I, to Palm Glades, which is an apartment complex in Belle Glade. I think they call it something different now, but it's still there. We lived there for a year or two. I vividly remember my time there. I had my own room and I had this white bunk bed with stuffed animals and stuff. And I used to play teacher with my stuffed animals. I became a teacher. Play teacher and talk to myself, which I still do to this day. And and talk to the stuffed animal. So that was a very pivotal time in my life because my brother and I are 7 years apart. And so I had all of that time to just learn how to be alone and play by myself. And so my mom, she was very present, in my life. I was kind of spoiled because I am the first grandchild on both my maternal and paternal sides of the family, and I'm also the first child as well. So I was spoiled in the fact that I was just very well taken care of. Not just, they let me did whatever, kind of thing. But I was just very well taken care of. And I that is one of the things that to this day, like I talk about a lot, is that I'm very grateful for the way that I was raised and by the people that I was raised by. It's what made me the young woman that I am today. So, my mom started dating my brother's dad around that time. We moved to the village. I want to say that's when my brother was born. Yeah, because we were still living in Belglade when he was born. I remember my auntie Weeda came to pick me up from school. I think I was going to Pinell Park, and I was in the in Boys and Girls Club after school program, and she came to get me because my mama was having my brother at Glaze General. Yeah, at Glaze General. That's the hospital we was born at. So, yeah, we ended up moving to Palm Beach and living. I think the first place we lived in Palm Beach was the Arbors, which is called St. Andrews now on Benoist Farms. And I went there throughout elementary school, and we moved from there. I think we moved to Wellington for the first time. We stayed there for like a year. Moved to Royal Palm, yada 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 yada. Okay, I'm telling you my childhood. At this point, I'm supposed to be talking about my mama, but I said all of that to say the one thing that I remember about my mom as it relates to my childhood is, one, my mom always working. That's number one. My mom is in the medical field, and she's a phlebotomist. So she had one job for like 12 to 15 years or so. But my mom has always, we had a very stable home life. That is the one thing that I remember. And even to this day, like I don't live with my mom anymore, but that's still a constant in my brother and sister's life. My mom was always adamant about ensuring that we lived in a stable, safe, peaceful home environment, whether that be the actual interior of the home to the neighborhood we lived in to the city. We never had, like, she wasn't in abusive relationships or toxic or anything like that, or we didn't live in places where it was high crime and violence and break-ins and you can't go outside and all that kind of stuff. We always lived in very peaceful environments, and so I'm very grateful to my mom for that. So those are the two things that I remember most about my mom, just her working and there being that stability in our home. And the only two, she was with my brother's dad for over a decade, and she was with my sister's dad for about a decade as well, if I'm not mistaken. And those two men played very important roles in my life. They were great father figures to me. They both treated me like I was their own child. Both of them, my siblings, are their only children. And so even them, like they play a role in each of our lives to this day. Maybe, we've grown up a lot now, so maybe not as much, but I know for a fact that if I needed to call my brother's dad or my sister's dad, I can, like, so, and that's attributed to, my mom selecting these men, So I'm grateful to my mom for that. My mom, we never kept a house full of people. And I think that's probably why I am the way that I am. Like, I'm very reserved. I keep to myself. I have a small circle. I don't really have people at my house and stuff like that. So that's probably due to my mom and how she is. The friends that she's had, like me, since she was in school. These are people that she grew up with, and I've known them all of my life. But she's always been go to work, come home. The only time she's going somewhere is when it's for us, keeping us active in extracurricular activities like sports. I played basketball when I was younger. My brother, he played basketball and football. My sister, she started out in ballet, then gymnastics. Now her thing is cheer. She's the baby. She's in high school now. Let's not talk about it. But my mom has just been like, that's her. Like her focus is on her kids. She'll go out every now and again, with her class. Her class that she graduated with, they're still very active and they do things. But other than that, child, she gonna go home. She gonna go to work. She gonna come home. Once she get home, she don't want to go nowhere. She don't want to be bothered. She gonna be in her room. She gonna watch her some Lifetime or watch her shows and stuff like that. And that's about it, baby. That's all you gonna get out of her. Okay. We are at 10 minutes. Oh, I'm good on time. Okay. I would say that me, you know, since I've moved here, my mom will tell you I've always been very independent. And she cried. She cried when I left. But my mom, like I said, I've always been this way. So she's kind of accustomed to it by now. But we talk, if not every day, every other day. We talk regularly, me and my mom. She always, knows where I'm at, who I'm with, all my friends, everybody I know here, she know their name or, got their phone numbers and stuff like that. So me and my mom, she's definitely a cornerstone of my support system. And again, I'm very grateful for that. The one thing that I've learned since I've gotten older is that my mom, the one thing I've noticed that she lacks, that I particularly need from her, is empathy. My mom is not, and I've told her this, so if she sees this video, then it's not a surprise to her, but she's just not very empathetic. My mom is very stoic. Not to say that she's incapable of being empathetic, but that's just not, I don't know. That's just not her strong suit. It's just not how she comes off. She's just very stoic. She comes off as very nonchalant. She's a good listener. If I call her and I want to, vent or rant or talk about something, she'll sit there and listen. But that's about it. The advice that she gives is going to be very logical. And it's just, sometimes I need her to be more nurturing. And that's kind of where, she drops the ball sometimes, for me in particular. And like I said, I've told her this. But aside from that, my mom is the one person who I know without a doubt that she's going to be there. So I'm grateful for that. I'm going to move on to my dad so that I can, ultimately answer. This was the first part, right? That's my relationship with my mom, now my dad. And then I'll tell you kind of how that influences me as an adult. Again, we have to be very mindful of time here. So my dad, like I shared, my mom and dad, I did not live in the house with my mom and dad. My dad married 4 years after I was born. And I vividly remember, I don't know why this stands out to me so much, but I vividly remember my dad, and I believe, and his wife, picking me up from my grandparents' house when I was, 4, let's say. And I was crying, kicking and screaming. I did not want to go for whatever reason. I didn't want to go. And I remember my granddad saying, telling my mom, she don't want to go. Don't make her go. Don't make her go. My granddad, that's my rock. That's my, that's my protector, my knight in shining armor. So, but yeah, I don't know why I remember that. But, my mom, they taken me to the car and I had to go off, with them wherever it is that they were taking me. But that's also something important to note, that my mom was very adamant about ensuring that I had a relationship with my dad. And so, my dad was in the military, like I said. So I remember my dad, when we were living in the Arbors, I was in elementary. I think my dad would call me from Afghanistan. My dad was in the war in Afghanistan. And so I remember that. But the most, I would say, thing of substance about my relationship with my dad is my relationship, or the lack thereof, between his wife and I. In the last two videos, I went into great detail about that. This video, for the sake of time, I won't do that. I will just say, like I said, it's a lack of. I don't have a relationship with my dad's wife, and the dynamic that we do have is negative. It is not a good one. You know, my dad's wife did not like outright abuse me physically or verbally, but she was just very nice, nasty to me. And when I was younger, I felt that. I felt that in the way that, you know, she treated me, or just she guarded my dad like a guard dog. You know, she was always holding his hand or sitting on his lap or around him. I could never get any quality time with my dad. The only quality time that I got with my dad was when he and my mom, when I was younger, would meet halfway to like, for my mom to drop me off to him. I would spend summers with my dad's side of the family and Thanksgiving. So when I was young, they would meet halfway and, you know, kind of exchange me. And so in those car rides, it was the only time I remember, anyway, getting quality time with my dad. But whenever we were around the whole family, not so much. And I just remember feeling like unwanted, and not necessarily by my dad. I never really felt that way from my dad. I don't think my dad ever made me feel unwanted, but like I said, it was the mistreatment that I was receiving from his spouse. And also too, I felt like as a child that the adults, right, my dad's side of the family, like they kind of saw it. It was like this elephant in the room, that everyone, you know, when my dad's wife would say, like, you know, slick things, or, you know, something, like, they could hear it, but no one said anything, like, no one. And as a child, right, I'm observing this, I'm experiencing this. So with every age, you know, that I grew older, especially in middle school, I remember, like, I got an attitude, like I was being hardened, right? And, you know, then they recognize the attitude, but ain't nobody asking you why you got an attitude, right? And it was because of that, because I was being made to go somewhere that I didn't want to go. And the reason I didn't want to go is because I did not feel like I was wanted there, right? And so that there came a turning point in that relationship. I visited my dad, I think I was in like 9th or 10th grade, and not even 24 hours into me being at his house, his wife came upstairs to the guest room where I was staying, and she told me that I needed to put my cell phone downstairs in the kitchen at nighttime, like, you know, their children did. Mind you, me and my sister are 4 years apart, and me and my little brother are 6 years apart. So if I was like 15, then they were 11 and 9, say. And I think I was doing hair at that time. So I think I had bought that phone. I was paying that phone bill, and I was a guest in this house. I wasn't going to be here that long. Right? So I'm just like, no. And I knew that there would come a time where she and I would clash like that, because again, what I had been experiencing throughout my entire childhood. And so it did. It came to a head that night. You know, use your imagination however you would like. I won't go into detail, but that was a very pivotal moment in not only me and her relationship, but me and my dad's as well. And so again, in the last video, like the videos that I recorded trying to put them on YouTube, I went into great detail about these things, but I'll spare you the details, you know, in this video. Maybe, you know, something about this will come up again and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But nonetheless, I ended up leaving my dad's house after that visit and not speaking to him for a year. And I think he ended up calling me and apologizing for, I think, his role and kind of how he handled it. And so we started talking after that. And in my 20s, I'm 31 now. So in my 20s, me and my dad, that was probably the best time in me and my dad's relationship, because when I came home from college and I had nothing, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a phone, I had nothing. Me and my dad connected on reading because I used to walk to the library in Wellington. It was like a mile from my house. And I used to walk there every day because I could use the computer and I could read. And I love to read. And so we connected on that. And I think he introduced me to Dave Ramsey. And so I got into financial literacy. And that's kind of what, made our relationship blossom. Um, and then I ended up getting into my relationship that I was in for all of my 20s when I was 22. And my dad, being married for as long as he had, he was a great confidant. I used to confide in him, talk to him, ask him for advice, just anything under the sun. Me and my dad used to talk. I want to say about weekly or so, about every week to every other week. In my 20s, and that was, like I said, that was some of the best moments of our relationship. However, checking time, okay. However, so I would say 20 to 29 was me and my dad. We talked regularly, and just, the trust had been rebuilt from the previous situation and all that stuff. However, I had a birthday party for my 29th birthday a couple of years ago, and I invited my dad. My dad had retired that year, actually. My dad did 30 years in the military, so shout out to him. I invited him to my birthday party, like I invited everyone closest to me, the friends that I had made here, and also my friends and family from back home. And he responded by declining and saying that we can't make it, right? So first of all, and again, I've shared this with my dad. We had this conversation at the beginning of last year, I believe, like January 2024 or something like that. I didn't invite y'all. I invited you. It was very important to me for my dad to be there because my dad had never been to a birthday party of mine. This was my first birthday party of my adulthood. I don't think he had ever been to a childhood birthday party because we didn't live in the same state. So it was just really important to me for all of the people closest to me to be there, and especially him. And when he said that we can't make it, I felt like that was very intentional. So it hurt, to put it plainly. It hurt. And from that day, I stopped calling my dad. That was September 2023. Anytime that we would talk after that, and even to this day, my dad would call me. And finally, in January 2024, I shared with him why that was. I was like, I remember, starting the conversation. He had called me to tell me something else, but I used that as an opportunity to share with him why. I told him that I'm sure you noticed that we don't talk as often as we used to, and here is why. And so I kind of laid all of that out for him and how I felt about that. I even brought up, my childhood, because we had never talked about any of that stuff. We never talked about what happened when I was 15. We never talked about, my childhood or any of that. And so we had that conversation, and my dad was very receptive. That's what I loved most about talking to my dad, is he's just very understanding, and he's very empathetic. He's very empathetic. He's very understanding. We're very much alike, not only in our faces, but just like when me and my dad would talk, it just would feel like I was on top of the world. Like, I love my dad. Absolutely love my dad. I love his face. I love when he grows out his beards and he has a salt and pepper beard. I love his voice. I love his laugh. I love his smell. I love my dad. I absolutely love my dad. But we had that conversation, and in a nutshell, I told him that, if you want us as a family to kind of turn over a new leaf and have a more cohesive, genuine relationship, I'm game for that. However, the three of us would have to have a conversation about these things. I'm not one to just sweep things under the rug. And the reason for that, segueing into how my relationship with my parents affects me, growing up and experiencing what I experienced, like there being an elephant in the room and nobody talking about it, that is why I am so like, I can't do that in my adult life. Like anyone who knows me knows when I feel some type of way about something, baby, we're going to talk about it. Okay? We're going to talk about it. So that's where we left off with that. And I told him that that was just necessary for me to be made whole. And, that was January 2024. We are in October 2025, and that has never happened. And I had a feeling that it wouldn't. But he definitely, like, he gave me some insight into, why he ended up handling things the way that he did at that time. Remember, we didn't speak for a year, and then he called me to apologize and stuff like that. So that gave me, some insight, like I said, and some solace as well. But, present day, like I said, I no longer call my dad, simply because, like I said, I used to confide in him and basically tell him all my business. I'm talking about all my business, okay? And I just, becoming an adult, like I'm 31 now. I've crossed over that threshold of being 30. So I fully understand what it means to be in a relationship, right? I've never been married, but I've just learned a lot about that dynamic between partners. And especially considering that, my dad being married to the same person for as long as he has, and now they're both retired and they're empty nesters and they're, the best of friends. They're always together. That's why everything is we, right? Whatever I tell him is likely going to be a filter, to her. And I told him bluntly, we ain't like that. That's what I'm gonna say. I was gonna say on FWH, but I'm gonna say we just ain't like that. We don't have that type of relationship, and so therefore, you can't be my confidant if that's your confidant, and I don't trust this person, right? So it's unfortunate. It definitely, it's painful sometimes, but again, as an adult, I understand, right? I understand. I accept it for what it is, and I respect it as well. That's a decision that he has made to always, support and back his wife or whatever it is. And I've made peace with that. But that just means that I get to decide, right, what our relationship dynamic is. And that's just where we are with that. So like I said, I think I have a good relationship with both of my parents. I love them dearly. I'm grateful for them. Like I said, my dad served in the military for 30 years, and that's how I was able to go to college. Like I said, throughout my relationship in my 20s, I was able to talk to my dad and seek advice in him. I learned about financial literacy from my dad, so I appreciate that. How my relationship with my parents affects me as an adult, greatly. Okay, that's first and foremost. It affects me greatly. So I've recently learned, and much of this has come through my experience of being in a relationship, like being in a romantic relationship with a man. Number one, I have recently learned that my tendency to like flee things that make me uncomfortable or that hurt me or something like that kind of stems from abandonment issues. And when I realized that, I was like, abandonment? Girl, you got abandonment issues? But I realized that, the situation with my dad and his wife, and me feeling like as a child, as a teenager, and as an adult, feeling like he put someone else, another female, before me. Like he's demonstrated that like several times. And granted, one of the, like when I said that he gave me insight as to why he handled the situation the way that he did, he shared with me that when that situation happened when I was 15, at the time, he went to the military chaplain to ask for advice, because if I think me and my parents are 21 years apart, so he was 36 at that time, 35, 36. He asked, what do I do in this situation? And the military chaplain told him, per the Bible, that your spouse always comes first, because your children will grow up, they'll get their own spouse, they'll create their own family, and they'll eventually leave you, right? So, and your spouse will always be there, ideally. And so he told me that, he felt conflicted by that, because he's like, this is my child, I'm tasked with protecting her. But ultimately, he ended up obliging what the chaplain said, and that's why he ended up kind of reneging on what he initially said, and handling the situation, and then, supporting his wife. So that's why I say again, I understand it. My logical brain fully understands it. My emotional brain, not so much. So yeah, that has created a sort of abandonment, wound within me. And so how like what that looks like in practice for me is like in my relationship, I'm quick to leave. Like quick, fast. Like I'm going to walk away because, and all of this, I'm able to articulate because of therapy. I have been in therapy for a while. And this is also something that I do. Like I said that in my childhood, I would talk to myself a lot. And so that has kind of become the way that I pray as an adult. Like I just talk out loud, and I am speaking specifically to God. But yeah, a lot of therapy, just a lot of shadow work or inner work or whatever you want to call it. But I'm just very inquisitive about myself. I've always known myself very well. So I don't want you to be able to tell me nothing about me that I can't already, I don't already know. Right. So yeah, that's kind of why I do that, because I'm trying to leave you before you leave me. So the abandonment issues with my mom, I was not raised to be a wife, because none of the women on my mom's side of the family were wives. I was raised to be, for lack of a better term, just to kind of give you a visual, a strong, independent Black woman. And I do not fault my mom and my grandparents for raising me to be so self-sufficient and strong-minded. They raised me to be able to take care of myself, in which I'm very good at. Okay. But I learned in my last relationship that I may have had those tools, but I lacked a lot of the tools that were necessary to nurture and maintain a romantic partnership with a man, right? Especially if I wanted to be married. Like for instance, like I told you about my mom just not the most empathetic of people. She's just not. She's just very like straight, no chaser, like no bullshit, like ain't putting up with nothing, very much like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so being that is the person that I was raised by, so her words, her actions, her demeanor, her mannerisms, alongside the things that my grandfather taught me to be loyal to myself. They taught me not to never let a nigga play with me, not to ever look dumb. All of these different sayings, it's still stuff that I can hear in my head to this day. Again, going back to child growth and development, right? So when it came to situations where some situations I was able to effectively apply that mentality, to keep myself from looking like a damn fool. But when it came for situations where I needed to be more nurturing, or I needed to, listen, or be quiet, or, you know, uh, um, put my pride and ego to the side, um, you know, just fight for the relationship, like stuff like that, baby, I couldn't do that. I still struggle with that to this day. I'm more aware of it right now. And because I'm not in a relationship, that I'm not, I'm not practicing it right now. So the next relationship I get into, I'll be able to, employ these changes and the things that I've learned. But that just went tools that I had in my toolbox. Okay. And that came from, like I said, like they gave me this part, but not this part. And I needed both of them. So I've had to learn this part through trial and error along the way. Um, so I get a lot of, I get, just that strong mindedness, that strong personality, that confidence, from my mom. And that has had its pros and cons, like I said. And then from my dad, I get my looks from my dad. But, speaking specifically about how it affects me as an adult or influences my decisions, I definitely desire a man who will be as committed and devoted as a husband and father as my dad is. Like, my dad is the kind of dad that he doesn't view his children as their mother's children. Like, we're his children. We have his last name. Our grandson, I got two last names. Got my mama and my dad is on. But I love the fact that I never felt that way. Maybe when I was, younger, because of the relationship that he and my mom had, it kind of felt like I was more my mom's child than his. But like I said, even in, the negative impact that his wife had on me and his relationship, I never felt unloved by my dad. So I definitely, when thinking about a long-term partner, a husband, or who I would want, to be the father of my children, I definitely compare them to my dad. Him being in the military for 30 years and being able to retire, like having that stability for his family. Like he was able to provide us with benefits so that the three of us can go to college, and taking family vacations. And right now they retired, and they had a lake house. Now they live full time at the lake house. That's their primary residence. So a lot of different a lot of the different experiences and things that I've been exposed to was because of my dad. And so that I'm very appreciative of. So that influences me to know, that there's just more out there. Like, there's more out there to life, and I can do. This is something that my grandfather used to tell me all the time. I can do anything I put my mind to. My mom was always, she taught me that as well. Like, she encouraged me and I don't know if this came by way of her not doing this, when she had the opportunity to do so, but she always taught me to go, right. And experience, just experience the world, live in, different states and stuff, so she could come visit. She would say that all the time. Like I said, she kept us busy in different activities, and anytime we had the opportunity to go somewhere and see something and do something different than what was being offered from where we were from, she made a way for us to have that opportunity. Same with my little sister. She just went on a college tour just this past week, I believe. So they've both, I would say, have influenced me in positive and negative ways. And that's just, I think, the nature of life. And I'm learning, I think there definitely was a period of time over the last few years, 3 to 5 years or so, where I did blame them in a way for some of the shortcomings that I had, or the things that I realized that I wasn't fully equipped, to deal with. But, that has come and gone with maturity and wisdom. And these are kind of the cards that I've been dealt, which are better than a lot of people, right? So I take that in stride. I do, like right now, here to this day, like I said, me and my mom, actually, me and my mom talked, I want to say today is Thursday. We talked last Saturday, and I changed my phone number recently as a part of this whole, reset and journey thing. And she was like, make that your last time changing your phone number. Because every time you change your phone number, now I got to go and change my emergency contact information, which I knew she was going to say, because she said that the last time I changed my phone number a few years ago. But then she made another comment that just triggered me. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just getting my day started. I don't need this negativity. I'm going to let you go. I'll holler at you later. And I got off the phone. So we ain't talked since then, but we'll be all right. We going to talk out the while. And like I said, I haven't spoken to my dad in a minute. Just because, I've assessed kind of, if I feel like anyone doesn't place the same value on me and the relationship that they have with me as I do to them, then in this period, of change and growth, that I've just decided to not necessarily, cut ties or burn bridges or anything like that. But just, kind of meet people where they are and reciprocate the energy. Right now, I am solely focused on realigning with my higher self and being the best version of myself, and making my dream life and the vision that I have for myself become a reality. I'm tired of talking about it. And that just requires me to isolate and focus. And so that's kind of where I am. But I'm good on time, girl. Look at you. But I hope that answered the question, right? My relationship with my mom, my relationship with my dad, and then how they both influence me as an adult. It influences me greatly. Like the things that my mom taught me, like the reason, like even right now here to this day, I was having a conversation with my best friend Strat, and he was saying, we were talking about some relationship stuff, and he pointed out that it's my pride and ego, and I'm being stubborn, which I already know that I'm working on it, but that comes from my mom. It stems from the things that she taught me, and I just can't shake it. Like, I tried, but I'm working on it. But I'm not a parent yet, but I've been working with kids since I was a kid, right? And through conversations with my dad, parents do the best that they can with what they know at the time. All right, my mom had me at 21. Okay, and she was teaching me the things that her parents taught her, because they was teaching me the same thing, and she was doing her best, and teaching me what she thought was best and what would protect me. And I find that too, talking about how it affects and influences me as an adult. I find that I'm always trying to protect myself emotionally, mostly. Like, I'm always trying to keep myself at equilibrium. So anything as it relates to my feelings and emotions that send me in order to bring it back down, as I close people out, I'm gonna walk away, I'm gonna whatever, like I'm gonna, because I need to get back here. I need to feel emotionally safe and stable. I'm always trying to protect myself. Um, so that's definitely one of the ways that it affects me. And like I said, in addition to, I'm a big proponent of being very intentional about the way you bring children into the world, and that stems from my experience as a child, um, and how important it is to have ideally a strong, healthy, positive male figure in the home. Ideally, that being the child's biological father, because even when I had those two men in the home with me who treated me like they were my own father. Now my brother's dad, he was more so, he went to work and he came home and he stayed in the room and watched TV. And my sister's dad was a little bit more active in that regard. But even with them, I remember feeling like as a child, you're not my dad. So especially going through those teenage years where I was being hardened by what I had experienced on my dad's side of the family with his wife, and there was that anger brewing in me. That period, I was definitely like, I ain't trying to listen to y'all, okay. But I had my grandfather, which I'm so grateful that he is still alive and well and here with us. I have my Uncle D, who I still talk to this day. Love him. The sound of his voice just brings me so much comfort. But just as I realize all of these different ways how these things, have affected me, continue to affect me, and I'm working through it, it is so important, so very important to have positive male figures in your life as a female in general. Like, that balance of feminine and masculine energy is so important, from familial male figures to romantic ones, and even platonic ones. It's all so important, because it is my platonic male friends that help me to understand men, so that I can apply that knowledge to the way I behave in romantic relationships. Because I don't be understanding. I'm like, why don't he get it? And it's them that help me to be like, well, this is how men's brains work, So I think I gave y'all enough. I'm trying, okay? This is me trying. I want to not only keep my promise to my viewers and subscribers, but on this journey, I am working on keeping promises to myself. So this is something that I say that I'm going to do for me, then I need to do that, right? So that's it. That's all. Y'all, listen. I feel most beautiful, okay, when I'm rocking a fro. Baby, listen, not too many of the girls, number one, wearing the fro and rocking, like, look good with it. Like, no matter what you put on, she fly. Okay, I just came from work. This is work tea. Okay, I ain't even I done took my shoes off, but I had on some orange Sambas with the little green StockX sign on it. Oh, baby, one thing she gonna do, if she don't do nothing else, she gonna dress. Okay, that's one thing I need y'all to know about me. Also, I made a bio. So go read that if you haven't already. That'll give you a little bit more insight about me. But that's it. That's all. It's 8:51. I'm doing good on time. I'm finna go bathe. I stopped watching Funky Dineva so I can come make this video. So I'm probably gonna catch up on that. And child, I've been going to bed by 9 something. I get sleepy and I go to yawn. And by 10:30, I'm in the bed. I'm in the bed in likely sleep. So I know my best friend Janaya, or JT is what I be calling her in my videos. She had called me before I started making the video, so I'm gonna give her a call back. And my next video is supposed to be on the story of my last relationship and what it taught me. And I've kind of just been assessing myself to see if that's something that I'm ready to talk about. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But the one after that I wanted to do was to talk about my flaws and insecurities, and how those, affect my confidence. I felt like that would be a great conversation. So I look forward to that. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. All right. Bye.